Cool. Okay, so I was recently asked how I would go about countering Sneasler. And I think to answer that question effectively, we should start by looking at Sneasler and what Sneasler does. Let me move myself over here. Sneasler fundamentally is a fast physical attacker with a variety of moves. With Unburden, of course, it gets even faster. Its primary damage is going to be coming from Dire Claw and Dire Claw and Close Combat, as those are its primary type attack bonuses, fighting and poison. So what does this tell us? Well, this tells us that if there are ways of mitigating fighting damage, ways of mitigating poison damage with typing, then we're going to go far in being able to shut down a Sneasler. Yeah, so there's that. Sneasler's abilities also leave it vulnerable to Intimidate cycling, so just in terms of general play, being able to lower the attack of a Sneasler consistently is a good way to try and shut it down. So Incineroar doesn't have a great matchup into it, but Intimidate does. And so if you're able to work the Intimidate multiple times, get it in there 2 or 3 times, that Sneasler is going to be doing a whole lot less damage. As far as specific Pokemon that in a vacuum do have a great matchup in the Sneasler comparative, first off, we have our Corviknight. Corviknight with the Flying type and Steel typing. With the Steel typing, it's completely immune to Dire Claw damage. With the Flying typing, it makes it so that close combat is only doing neutral damage. So that helps tremendously in mitigating Sneasler damage output. Corviknight is naturally pretty bulky. Mine is trained for significant amounts of defense here, but depending on the set that you're running, Corviknight can run Bulk Up and Roost. And that combination there shuts down Sneasler's ability to inflict damage, barring a critical hit, really quickly. And yeah, so it's generally a favorable trade, but not always. The bulk of the damage that you end up taking from Sneasler usually comes in the form of the close combats. So you could, if you're really looking to specifically shut down Sneasler, you could consider a Tera that would reduce the close combat damage. So a Poison Tera would probably be ideal against Sneasler, as that would leave you still resisting Poison type damage, so Dire Claw's not going to do as much. But then you would also resist close combat. For the next one, Basculegion. Basculegion has the advantage of being a Ghost type. Ghost types, of course, are immune to fighting type damage, so that will cut out that particular type of damage. Basculegion is very bulky. It has a very high HP stat. As a result of that, the high HP stat, the Basculegion isn't going to go down to a single Dire Claw, and that usually allows it to knock out the Sneasler in return due to the high neutral damage coming out of a Wave Crash or Last Respects. The exception to that, of course, being if the Sneasler is running a Focus Sash, and that is why you carry Aqua Jet on your Basculegion, because then you drop it to 1 HP, and then you can Aqua Jet the following turn for the KO. Next, Gholdengo. Gholdengo is one of the few just straight-up hard counters. If the Sneasler does not have either a Tera that allows it to hit Gholdengo and running Tera Blast, or Throat Chop, the Sneasler legitimately cannot touch Gholdengo as long as Gholdengo doesn't Tera. So you are, as a Steel and Ghost type, you are immune to both Close Combat and Dire Claw, and that goes an extraordinarily long ways towards just walling out the Sneasler and making it unable to do anything to you. Talonflame, I have found, is one of the most annoying Pokemon for me to fight against when I'm running Sneasler, because a lot of Talonflames lean more into the support role and are naturally faster than Sneasler. So in that first turn, before you get Unburden up, a Talonflame with a Covert Cloak is capable of just chucking a Will-O-Wisp straight into your Sneasler and inflicting a burn. That burn severely hampers Sneasler's ability to do damage consistently throughout the course of the match. So I do strongly encourage that. If you're running into trouble with Sneasler and you need a Tailwind setter who also can provide some damage or can provide some utility to the team, Talonflame is a great option. You just Covert Cloak so that you're not worried about Fake Out, and then you just burn the Sneasler in turn 1. Volcarona is actually a pretty decent choice so long as you follow a couple of rules. One, don't have a Tera like this one that is weak to Dire Claw. because then Sneasler is going to delete you. And 2, don't have a Terra that is weak to close combat, because, well, Sneasler is going to delete you. Volcarona is generally weaker on the physical defense side, so if you're specifically looking to block damage from Sneasler, I would recommend training more into the HP and more into the physical defense than you might normally run. Flame Body, of course, helps. Here, we'll move that. Flame Body, as one of Volcarona's abilities, does help mitigate the possibility that Sneasler is going to want to physically attack, or to attack into the Volcarona slot. The problem being that if Sneasler is attacking into the Volcarona slot, it's probably coming at you with enough damage to knock you out in one shot. So Flame Body most likely isn't going to be able to have a chance to proc except more than once. That once might be enough, it might not. Volcarona can also run Will-O-Wisp, similar to Talonflame, which helps tremendously with shutting down Sneasler and Sneasler's damage output. So I do recommend that. But yeah, if you're specifically looking to stop a Sneasler using a Volcarona, train heavily into your defense and your HP stats. Don't just rely on Flame Body. Whoops, that was the wrong screen to move. Alright, cool. Yeah. The last one that I'd recommend, or the last two, I should say, that I'd recommend, I don't have one of them ready to go at the moment, but Salamence actually does a very good job of shutting down Sneasler. If you're running Intimidate, what I mentioned with Incineroar and Intimidate cycling, Salamence does a great job of cycling Intimidate, resisting close combat, so that's a good combination of things. Particularly if you have a Pokemon in the back that is immune to Dire Claw, because if the Sneasler is going to go after Salamence, Dire Claw is by far its best damage option into the Salamence, but you get 2 or 3 Intimidates down, Sneasler is generally in a very rough spot, plus the fact that Salamence usually can carry some kind of flying type move. That flying type move hitting for super effective damage into Sneasler is going to do a lot, and generally speaking, Salamence tends to come out on top in the trades. The other one is Dragonite. Dragonite isn't so much a tech method of beating Sneasler, if you will. It doesn't have Intimidate, it doesn't necessarily have anything like that. It resists close combat. If you have multi-scale, the multi-scale is going to reduce the amount of damage you take. And a lot of Dragonite are either running like Terra Flying Terra Blast, honestly Choice Band Extreme Speed Spam. I probably wouldn't go Terra Normal just in case your opponent predicts it, but Choice Band Extreme Speed Spam is going to do a lot. It'll usually 1 or 2 shot Sneasler depending on how they're, well, not one shot them generally, but it will most likely 2 shot a Sneasler depending on how it's trained. 3 shot almost certainly. If you double up into it though, it allows you to remove it even if it has the Focus Sash on there. And then the final thing, oh yeah, a lot of Dragonite are usually carrying Stomping Tantrum. Stomping Tantrum will hit for super effective damage. Sometimes it just clears the Sneasler out, and sometimes the Sneasler can take that hit but not the follow-up hit. So yeah, there's 7 Pokemon that you can take to potentially shut down some Sneasler play. We'll admit Sneasler is also very weak to Psy Spam, unless you're running a Terra Dark on it, just because it is quadruple weak to Psychic type moves. But if somebody's bringing a Sneasler into what looks like a Psy Spam match, it's usually because they have some sort of plan, or we're really hoping you didn't bring Psy Spam that game. Anyway, I hope that helps with shutting down Sneasler. Again, big takeaways, there are a handful of Pokemon that do a great job of just in a vacuum countering Sneasler, but Inflicting a Burn and Intimidate cycling are by far the best ways of mitigating Sneasler's overall damage output, as most of the time it's only running single target damage, so it gives you a little more flexibility to move Pokemon in and out, get off multiple Intimidates, get off multiple stat drops, and just generally shut it down.